Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Dad's Perspective Podcast. It is January 11th already. Took a little break, but that's okay because we needed to, right, Story?
Yes, 100%.
Dude, the holiday season was one of the best I've had in actually quite a while, right? It was my son's first ever Christmas. Now, granted, my son is only like 2 months old, so there wasn't too much baby involvement outside of he just was present. What about you, man? How was your holidays? How was your Christmas?
Not bad. I mean, she got a lot of stuff spoiled, as always.
Yay.
But it was actually really good. Like, as much as I didn't want to go see my family, because I'm just kind of like that, like, just the last few years for what I've been dealing with. I'm kind of just like, I kind of want to break. Like, I just want to do my own thing with Emma. But, like, I'm glad I went. Like, my grandmother was happy I saw her. We took some pictures together with my teeth in.
Yay,
and,
teeth.
Yeah, it was just good, man. Like, it was the first time in a long time. Like, I was happy to be around my family. We had a good time. Emma had a blast.
And that's how it was for us, too, man. I've definitely been, the last couple of years, I've a lot of isolation, you know, on purpose and on accident. And ultimately, it served its purpose. But this was the first real year, the first Christmas, that I showed up and got to spend time with my family. Like, I was there. I was present. I wasn't just looking for the door, looking for the exit. Yeah, man. And it felt really good. It felt really good. What type of traditions do you guys got? Or you said you might be starting your own.
Yeah, I was kind of just thinking of, like, what could I do to kind of, like, have something that she can pass down? Because, like, my family doesn't really have anything. Like,
oh, really?
I feel like when my grandmother passes away, I don't know how big my family's going to be on getting together. Because, like, we do it a lot for my grandmother because she was born on Christmas. Like, it's big for her. So, like, we celebrate her birthday. Like, Christmas is her favorite holiday.
Yeah.
But, like, I feel like she kind of holds us all together. And, like, once she's gone, like, I don't know. But, like, we don't really do anything, like, super special. Like, we get up in the morning, we do presents, and my family comes. And, like, we all then do Christmas presents, like, with the other rest of the family.
Yeah.
But, like, there's nothing special. Like, no, like, special food or special, like, light something on fire and throw it out a window, you know, whatever. Like, so.
Yeah. So no, like, nothing that solidifies the day as interesting. So for me, and I don't mean interesting bad, just I come from a family of tradition, right? Like so this is the Marcus tradition. So at 6 p.m. Christmas Eve, TBS starts the Christmas Story marathon on their channel. It's back to back, A Christmas Story. It's one of the best Christmas movies that has ever been made. Have you seen it? With Ralphie and They'll Shoot Your Eye Out Kid?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I was about to have to hang up.
Well, a long time ago.
Okay, well, you're due. Now, listen. Now, that's a big deal for me, all right? I got memorabilia everywhere. Calm down. We're good. So, we'll have our Christmas Story conversation later. But, so what we do is at 6 p.m., you have to watch the first showing of A Christmas Story on TBS, right? Yeah. Because it plays for 24 hours. So, from 6 p.m. to 6 p.m., roughly, Christmas Day, it plays A Christmas Story. So you watch the first and the last. So that's one of our traditions that we do. But the big tradition that we do is the one present on Christmas Eve. So you all get together, you do one present, and then that's it, right? And then Santa Claus comes and then does his job. And then in the morning, we'll do presents first, get those done and awesome. And then we'll do breakfast. Right. So, and then the big family tradition is 2 weeks before Christmas, we get together and celebrate Christmas.
Yeah. So
that's like the Marcus household tradition. Now, I want to start new traditions with my son. Right. Like so one new tradition that we just started is Star Wars Christmas or Thanksgiving. Right. So on Thanksgiving, we watch one Star Wars movie. And then we start over the trilogy. So episodes 3, 4, and 5, the good ones, right? Or 4, 5, and 6, excuse me, the good ones. So I from the show with Barney Stinson, How I Met Your Mother. There was an episode on that show where that said, if you don't watch the original Star Wars trilogies at least once every 3 years, you're doing yourself a disservice. And from that episode, I've always made a point to make sure I never go more than 3 years without watching the original Star Wars trilogy. Well, 3 years ago, we started the Thanksgiving Star Wars tradition. So we just did Return of the Jedi. And then so this year's Thanksgiving, 2024, we're going to start back over with A New Hope. And then that's just the way it's going to go. And like, this will be his first year watching Star Wars, which is so fun to think about. Because right now he's just a mush, right? We show him things and he goes, ooh, like, it, you know, we're stimulating his brain neurons. But the moment he can actually like hold a stick and swing it around like a lightsaber, man, like, no way. Those are the moments that I'm so ready for. Because as a baby, there's just nothing for me to do.
Yeah, no, 100%, dude. I guarantee you're just like, I can't wait until like he's old enough that he can kind of talk a bit and like we can kind of like have a little conversation. Because that was me, and now I'm just like, man, some days I'm like, can you just be little again? Like I miss you being little, but at the same time, I'm just like, I think it's more just like, listen, you little shithead. I'm like, you were driving me nuts. I'm like, do you remember when you were just little? I'm like, and you would lay there eating your cookie, watching, you know, Lego Ninjago on TV.
Yeah.
I'm like, because all the colors. I'm like, and now you're just driving me nuts. I'm like, I want to throw you in the closet. But
so
I feel
what?
It, man. Like,
when you picture her as a baby, what does that mean? Like 1 year old, 4 months old? Like what is baby Emma? And I forgot.
I feel like between like six months old to like maybe like a year and a half, maybe 2. Like that's kind of like my baby stage where like I really miss her because the neighbor, her one daughter isn't even 2 yet.
Oh wow.
And I go over there and like, dude, she's just running around. Like she acts so like shy when she first sees me and like will like yell and excited like I'm there, but then pretends like she doesn't know me and runs away to like hide on the couch. And then she just starts throwing things at me. And I'm just like, why is it every time I come over here, I'm like, you just whip things at me. Yeah. I'm like, pillows, toys. I'm like, you can't just, but like, she'll hug me randomly. And I'm just like, man, I miss Emma being that little. But at the same time, like, I'm happy that she can talk now. Yeah. And, like, we can do things together. And she's into gaming and like, she loves Ark. And like, I play that. She's been naming my dinosaurs. Like, we've been talking about playing games together. Like, dude, it's so fun. And just like, I'm so happy.
So it's like would you say that a big change is once that innocence starts to mature? Like they become a little more logical. They become a little more, I mean, I hate to use the word, but like adult, right? Because before you described, you know, you don't know what she's going to do. Is she going to throw something? Is she going to dance? But then it's almost, is she a little more predictable than she was as a kid? And that's where, like, why would you say the difference is? Or the biggest difference?
I think it's just more of like, the predictability, because like when she's little, like you said, you don't know what she's gonna do, and like you just have like this really cute moments because like you can't really tell, but then like as she gets older, like you can kind of tell what mood she's in. She's being silly and stuff. You kind of expect things, but like like they're so dependent on you when they're little, and I feel like there's more of an attachment when they're little because like you have to give them all your attention. And then as she got older, it's like, oh, well, now I can tell you, like, Dad, I don't feel good. Well, what's wrong? Oh, my belly hurts, or my head hurts, or I don't feel, you know, I can't breathe. And I'm like, okay. Like, now I'm just like, okay, like, yeah, I still care about you, I love you to death, but it's like, it's not as, like, 100% focused all the time. Like, I can kind of do my own thing if I need to. And, like, she can go get her own snacks and stuff when she's little. It's like, snack. And I'm like, okay. And I'm like, well, what do you want? And then we're playing the guessing game for like an hour. Like, do you want this? Do you want this? And it's just like, you know.
And so that independence. Yeah. And her needing you. So somebody needing and relying on you, man, feels great. I imagine it feels even better with a kid.
Yeah. And then I'm telling you, dude, when your son gets that age where like he starts being able to get his own snacks, just be like, Dad, can I have, you know, a Pop-Tart? And you're like, yeah, go ahead. And he just goes and gets it. You're going to be like, he doesn't need me as much anymore. And it's just like something in you just like fucking breaks, dude.
Oh no,
like,
really?
It's just like, dude. I'm
They're
like,
growing up.
I'm like, And then, but I'm like, it was weird because like I always joke with her mom, like when we were being kind of civil and like actually talking, like, she's always like, get pictures first day of school and stuff, like if you have her. And I'm just like, you can have her for the first day of school. I'm like, it means more to you than it does to me. I'm like, I don't understand. I'm like, it's school.
Yeah.
I'm like, what? I'm like, what's the big deal?
Do you still
But
feel
like,
that way?
yeah, I'm like, it's school. I'm like, she's
Yeah.
gonna go next year. She's gonna go a year after that. I'm like, I think when I'm gonna get sentimental for like the school related thing is like when she graduates and she's gonna go off to college or she decides to go and like
Mm.
then she's moving away. I think that's when
Oh
I'm gonna get
shit.
upset. But like honestly, there's really not too much that she's done that like I've really gotten like emotional over, except for like when she asked me she wanted to play a game and like she wanted me to teach her.
Oh.
And then like she started being able to like do it herself and not ask for help. And I just like, dude, I'm telling you that night, like I just cried because I was so happy. Like
Yeah.
she's into something I'm into, like she's on her own. Like she wants me to take the Xbox upstairs, give her my TV from my room so she can play whenever she wants in her room.
Wow.
Like she's been asking for more games to play. Like she's into Pokemon. Um, there's a new game coming out in next week that I'm super excited because like I know she'll kind of like it because it's kind of like Pokemon related, but it's like Pokemon for adults.
Oh.
So like I'm super excited to like share it with her and
Yeah.
see if she like is into it. And it's like, oh dude, I'm so excited just to be able to share these things with her.
Huh.
And like she's kind of excited for stuff. And I'm
Yeah.
just like, oh dude, it's great.
So the common interests still give you that tickle.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
Like
because you're just like you could be excited together because I'm like Emma and she's like, what? I'm like, Power World comes out next week, and she's like, "What's that?" And I'm like, "Remember that Pokemon game? That's kind of like Pokemon, but like they have like guns and stuff." And she's like, "Yeah." And like I showed her, and she's like, "Dad, I'm so excited." She's like, "Are you gonna play it?" I'm like, "Yes, I'm gonna play it."
Yeah.
And she's like, "Can I watch?" I'm like, "Of course you can watch." I'm
That's
like,
amazing.
"But only if like we're not doing anything." And then of course like everybody underneath the sun wants to do stuff next week, so like I don't have any time. And I'm like,
You'll
well,
make
I guess
time.
you can wait till we come back. I'm like, because I'm like, I'm going to see a family friend. Then I'm going to see my dad, who I haven't seen in like, I want to say probably like 6-7 months.
Wow.
And, like, I'm excited. So, because she gets to go see Uncle Nick, who she loves to death.
Yeah.
So, like, I got that going on. So, I'm like, whole weekend's booked now. So, I'm like, hey, whatever. And, like, we still have fun. I'm like, she's excited.
Yeah.
I'm like, so. But yeah, dude, like, just having something in common and being sharing interest. And, like, it's just a different level of, like, love, I guess.
Yeah. Like a
But
connection.
it's just, yeah. But when they're a baby, dude, it's totally different.
Mm. So it's I'm seeing like the more you can provide, the more that's such a connection point for you and the kids. Like when they were a baby, you could provide the food and the comfort and the love. And now that she's older, a lot of those points are coming from shared experience of I get to show her a game and then she gets to play it. Right? Yeah. Because have you ever shown her like Pokemon cards? Like I imagine
no, she has with her one uncle on her mom's side, but I'm like, you're not responsible enough for that. Like I have a couple that I've shown her because like I got them out of because I was going to McDonald's and getting kids meals to get Pokemon cards, trying to get some for like save to sell later on maybe, and I showed her, and I gave them to her because I'm like, it's McDonald's. I'm like, I don't really care. I didn't get anything I wanted anyway. That lasted all about a week before she lost them.
Okay.
So I'm like, yeah, you are not ready to see my Pokemon collection. Harry Potter, Digimon, like none of that. Yu-Gi-Oh, no, they're still in a box until you're old enough to be responsible.
You have Digimon cards?
Yeah.
No way. That's awesome. All right, that's a side note. I want to see them. I'm responsible.
Yeah, I'm just trying to see if I can find out where they are. I think they're in storage with my mom, but I'll have to find. I'll have to look.
Dude, that's so cool.
But yeah,
get them out displayed or something. Anyway, so I mean, you got tons of firsts left because Emma's what, 8?
6.
6. Oh, I was. Sorry, my bad. So I mean, think about what's the next like big milestone that you see her or being a part of with her?
So she's never been to an aquarium, and
really?
Her mom asked me for like that to be her first because like I took her to her first zoo.
Cool.
Like that she's old enough to remember. Like first video games, like first like bicycle ride. So like her mom wanted to take her to the beach, but couldn't because I ended up doing it first. So she's like, "Can I have the aquarium?" And I was like, "Yeah." But now because like the situation we're going through, I'm like, I don't even care anymore.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm taking her. So like I want to take her to I think it's Baltimore Aquarium when I went when I was a kid. And dude, even though that was so long ago, like I still remember like walking in because like the entrance is like a giant like shark head that you walk into, and like you go through the doors and like you just go in, and like you have your reception area that you talk to people, get your tickets and pay and whatever, and then you just go in. And I remember just walking in, and it's just like a glass tunnel, and like there's fish and like sharks swimming around, and like then they had separate everything and like their different like aquariums they have. But like you just like you're underwater almost, and like dude, it was just amazing. I'm like, I want to take her to that, dude. Like I'm so excited to go back because my dad took me when we went to Washington D.C.
Yeah,
like, we went through the monuments and like the museums, and then we went to that aquarium. And I remember the gift shop we went to nearby that had like an actual like great white shark's like mouth mounted on the wall, like just the skeleton part.
Yeah.
And like there's like a model ship in there. And I'm like, dude, and I just remember like I was maybe 8, maybe 9. And I'm like, to this day, I still remember it. Like, and I'm just like, dude, I can't wait to take her, and like, cause she loves fish.
Yeah.
So like, I'm super excited, dude.
What a
like,
core
like,
memory.
Yeah. Like,
wow. And you get to be a part of that.
Yeah, like when she gets older, she has kids. Like she can tell the guy, I remember my dad took me to like the aquarium. Like I can't wait to take you kids. And dude, I'm excited.
See, that is forming a tradition right there. That is forming a legacy, man, that you get to pass on to your kids and make matter. Because ultimately, I don't know if we were talking about this the other day, but Lindsay and I were talking about how ultimately nothing matters. The only things that matter in this world are the things that you make matter. Like, and it's a sad reality that a lot of people don't want to hear. But the truth is, when I was growing up, holidays were a bigger deal because they were a bigger deal. They were a larger part of our culture, and you saw that everywhere. And the truth is about right now with digital modern times, I hate sounding like that old guy, but the truth is, shit just doesn't matter as much as it used to. We don't have the ownership that we used to. Digital goods has made us just treat life like paper we throw in the wastebasket. And ultimately, Christmas, holidays, Thanksgiving, birthdays, if we don't apply value to those, going to the aquarium is a great example. That's an old world thing. They have to make it amazing now to get people to go. With, like you described, I love that it's awesome. But the truth is, by setting up this memory with your daughter, man, you are setting up her for a life of curiosity and value. Like it's a tangible thing that she can walk away with forever. And that is a big deal. It's not the same as putting on VR goggles and going, you are taking her to a real place, doing a real thing.
VR's cool, but
it is
like,
cool.
Yeah, like you said, it's not the same. Like, because you're right. Like, if we don't put value in it, because I remember me and my parents took her to there's a zoo like 4 hours away or 3 hours. Like it was a haul, man. It's like this Lake Tobias Zoo.
Mm-hmm.
And like it's not really like a super huge zoo. You can do the whole thing in like 2, maybe 3 hours.
Oh, okay.
And like we went, and like dude, I was just not impressed because like I'm used to going to like big zoos, like the Philadelphia Zoo, the Hershey Zoo, like they're huge zoos. So like I went to this like inky dinky zoo, but she loved it. But I'm just like, dude, like what? Like no, this is garbage, man. But for her, she's like having a blast and loving it, and like and I'm just like, I'm like, it's more about her than me. I'm like, I need to focus on that. But I'm just like, man, I was kind of disappointed because like. I just felt like even though she had a good time, I'm like, man, like imagine if we went to a big zoo. Like she really got like the panda bears and all. Like they have like there's like turtles and like some crocodiles and turtles and
like reptiles.
Giraffes. Yeah, and like some birds. But like nothing like crazy other than that. I'm just like, man, but dude, she loved it. So I'm like, and then that's all that really mattered.
Well, and one thing I imagine is you weren't going like, oh, this sucks. Wait till you see the good zoo. Right? Nah. Because if that's what you did, that would have been her memory. But because you're like, well, I can't wait to show her when this zoo actually is awesome. And you kept that high energy and made it a memory. She's going to remember it forever. And then her mind's going to be blown when she sees a panda.
Oh, yeah. Dude, I'm going to have my mind blown when I see a panda because I haven't seen one in ages.
Oh, man.
So, I'm excited. But yeah, dude, she had a blast. And it's a good thing that I remember, man, because like I always say, like, one of these days, I'm like, I'm not gonna be here because that's a talk that we had recently.
Oh wow,
that,
already?
Like I was, because my stepdad's dad passed away think it's been like 2 months now. And the last time I had her, like I told her like we were gonna go. I said and see. And then just this last weekend, she asked about going again. And I said no. I was like, I'm not. I don't want to. Like we went, we slept over. I'm like, we're gonna take a break. And then we ended up going anyway because of snowstorm. But she's like, well, is Pop Pop gonna be there? And I'm like, well, I'm like maybe. I'm like he has to take care of some stuff. And she asked me again. I was like, well, he has to clean out old Pop Pop's house. And she's like, well, where's old Pop Pop? And I was like, well, sweetheart, I'm like, he passed away, remember? And then like she's like in the stage now where she's asking more questions. And she's like, well, what do you mean old Pop Pop passed away? And I was like, remember old Pop Pop died, sweetheart. And she's like, well, where is he? Ooh. So then we got the subject of, I'm like, well, I may not believe in it, but I'm like, well, he went to heaven, sweetheart. Yeah. I'm like, that's, worth like your guinea pigs and your hamsters and, that I may or may not have accidentally murdered, and, the puppies. I'm like, and she's like, well, what happened? I'm like, well, like his heart wasn't any good anymore. I'm like, and they couldn't fix it because there's some things that they just can't fix. And she's like, well, does that happen to everybody? I'm like, yeah, unfortunately, it's fair. Like, eventually that's everybody. She's like, even you? And I'm like, yeah, sweetheart. I'm like, eventually daddy's not going to be here anymore. I'm like, but that's not for a long time.
Yeah.
And she's like, but you'll be okay. And I'm like, no, sweetheart. I'm like, unfortunately, daddy can't fix everything. She's like, yes, you can. And like, it just broke me. And I'm like, well, I will do my best to be here as long as I can.
There you go.
Like, good. And then I'm like, so how was school?
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
But like, dude, some days, man, it's just, she gets in some real deep, like, you shouldn't be asking these questions yet, man. But like, she's a smart little girl. And I'm like, I just do my best to answer it because it's the best you can do.
Yeah. Well, and I was going to ask, so is that a conversation you had thought about beforehand, or did you have to come up right off the...
No, like, top of my head, dude, like, I have to phrase it in a way that she's going to understand.
Yeah.
How do I say, like, people just die. Like, we get old, like, our bodies shut down. They can't handle things anymore. And I'm like, it's going to happen to everybody, and not scare her.
Yeah.
And just do it in a way where, like, when she's like, well, you can fix anything. Like, you're going to be here forever. And I'm like... No, like I could die tomorrow, sweetheart. Like,
yeah, but you don't say, because you could die tomorrow.
Yeah. Like I just gotta be like, look, sweetheart. I'm like, things happen. Like, like I will do my best to be here as long as I can. And like, so I'm
it's
trying,
like
but it's just.
So it's like a fine line between you want to make sure you're being honest with them to the level that
they can
comprehend. Because ultimately the goal, you don't need to drive home. Like, no, you need to understand that I could die right now.
Like, you could die tomorrow. You could die in 10 minutes.
Yeah. The point isn't that. The point is to answer her question honestly while still maintaining their innocence and youth.
Yeah, because I taught her, like, I've been slowly trying to teach her how to use the phone and explain to her, like, if you ever wake up in the morning, sweetheart, and you got to wake up dad, I said, if he won't wake up, I said, you got to call mommy or you got to call meme. And she's like, well, why wouldn't you wake up? And I'm like, well, we just had a death talk. I'm like, I don't want to get that. So I was like, well, sometimes daddy's a really deep sleeper. I'm like, or daddy, sometimes when he's not feeling well, he takes medicine and, medicine might make him too tired. I'm like, but you can't be by yourself. I'm like, so you need to know how to call someone in case daddy takes medicine and he's just too sleeping that you can't wake him up. I'm like, you can't wait for him to wake up. So, like, I was slowly teaching her, and, like, her mom flipped shit about it. But I'm like, she's 6 years old. I'm like, she needs to learn at some point.
Well,
I'm like, because I'm like, tomorrow's not guaranteed. I'm like, what if I fall down the stairs in the morning? I'm like, and I snap my neck. I'm like, she's supposed to stay here by herself until, like, the day, like, the school calls or, like, it's the weekend, she doesn't have school. Someone's like, oh, hey, I haven't heard from him in a while. I'm like, it's not a great thing to have to teach your child.
Yeah.
But
it's responsible, though.
For single parents, I'm like, it's what you have to do. I'm like, because who else can I rely on? I'm like, I don't have anybody.
Yeah.
I'm like, and that's a big thing people don't understand. They're like, well, I have my other half, I'm like, okay, that's good for you. I'm like, but imagine the day comes that, like, your other half, like, you separate, or God forbid, knock on wood, they pass away. I'm like, who do you have that is going to constantly check in to make sure that you're okay?
Yep.
I'm like, especially if your parents are gone or you don't have anybody, like you're separated from your family because, like, things happen when you were younger. I'm like, who do you rely on?
Yeah.
I'm like, other than your child. I'm like, so it sucks.
It
I'm
sucks to
like,
have to
so
think about something that most people get to avoid thinking about their whole lives.
yeah, like I have to prepare like at night, like I'll put like a cup or two of like juice in the fridge that she doesn't have to worry about. Like I make sure I have snacks accessible. Like I have Lunchables because she can do that on her own. So if case God forbid, like, you know, something does happen to me, my mom will usually check on me at some point during the day if she sees I haven't been online. She's like, oh, he hasn't been online yet today. Like that's weird. So if I
Oh,
don't
interesting.
answer, you know, and she knows I have Emma, like she'll try again. And then if I don't answer, she's like, I may come in. She's like, or I'll wait like an hour or two, try again. And then if I don't hear from you, I will come to your house. So like I have that, which is good.
That is
But
good.
I'm like, you know, I have to think in advance. Like, you know, that's a time period where what is Emma going to do in the meantime? Like,
Well,
she
yeah.
knows she can go, like, she has her tablet. You know, she can go to the bathroom on her own now. Like, she can get her drinks out of the fridge. She has snacks, Lunchables, you know, but still, like, you know, it's something that as a parent, like, you really have to think about. And it's still, even if you have your other half, like, if you work separate, like, schedules, like, that's
Oh,
still
true.
something good that your child should know. Like, because there's still that time frame of, like, you know, yeah, your other half wakes up in the morning, sees you're breathing, but what's to say he doesn't leave and 5 minutes later you have a heart attack in your sleep or whatever?
Woo.
I'm like, now that's how many hours till your other half gets home.
Yeah.
You know, if they don't check on you throughout the day or you don't message them, you know, whatever. Because and like my friend, like her husband, throughout the entire day that he's at work, doesn't message her once, doesn't call her, nothing. So it's like that's
Jerk.
8 hours that he's
Yeah.
at work, then 45-minute drive home. That so about almost 9 hours in that time frame, something happens to her, like
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
So it's something that definitely as a parent, like you really need to think about if you don't have someone or you know anybody close by that checks you constantly.
Yeah. Well, and then the idea of, like you said, if something does happen to you, she's alone. And if you don't have a system in place of people who check in on you, you want to make sure that they know what to do when they're old enough to do it. And ultimately, it sounds the big thing is don't make them scared, right? Like you don't want to say
100%.
like, oh, daddy's going to not wake up one day. It's like, if you can't wake me up because I'm a heavy sleeper, you know, this is what you do. And like, that is how you train a young kid to start to become independent again, without turning them into an adult. That's what has happened so much to too many kids is that because their parents want them to be safe, they turn them into adults. And it's like,
and
overload them, man.
Yeah. Cause that happens at her mom's house. Like, I like as a separated parent, like obviously different households, they have different, you know, methods to punishment and things, stuff like that, which is fine, you know, and that's part of co-parenting, you know, like it's going to be different. But like what I don't agree with is like, she's 6 years old. Her mom expects her to get her clothing out the night before for school the next day. Then get up in the morning when she wakes her up. She needs to brush her teeth, get dressed, put her dirty clothes away, make her bed,
by herself,
get her stuff together for school for like her snack. Make sure she has her water, make sure that she has everything she needs for school in her backpack. She has to do all that in the morning. And she's supposed to remember it. And if she doesn't, she gets yelled at because she shouldn't have to be reminded because she's been doing it for 3 months.
Wow. That's hardcore, man.
I'm pretty sure she has ADHD. Her therapist is pretty sure she has ADHD. So right there alone, that already is an issue because like our memory just in one ear and out the other, we don't want to do it. And I try to explain that to her, but you know, God forbid, what do I know? But I'm like, it's too much for a 6-year-old kid. She is still a kid. I'm like, ease into it. I'm like, fine. You want her to get dressed in the morning? Okay. Make sure, like, you remind her. She has her clothes fitter. Say, hey, get your clothes together. Get dressed. Okay. There's one thing. And then maybe say, like, okay, you need to get your snacks together for lunch. You know where they are. Just get them, put them in your lunch bag, put them in your backpack. That's it. 2 things. Do that for a couple months. And then it's like a routine. She knows it. Then add on the other stuff. Don't overwhelm her with like 8 different things to do. Like, end of the day, she's still a kid. Like, here, she gets
6 years old.
I'm like, I pick out her, like, I pick out outfits the night before. I say, which one do you want? She'll pick out. It's like, okay, I put it downstairs on a little piano table chair thing that I have next to the couch.
Okay.
She'll go home down in the morning, lay on it. I have that there. I already have her snacks made up. And I'm like, okay, time to get dressed. Get dressed. She gets herself dressed. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, what else do we need to do next? And she's like, lay back down. I'm like, no. I'm like, do you need something for school? And she's
Lay
like,
back
oh
down.
yeah. She's like, I need lunch snacks. I'm like, okay. I'm like, well, where are those? She's like, they're in the fridge. I'm like, so should I get them together? And she's like, yeah. So I go and do it for her. And I'm like, okay, where do they go? She's like, in my book bag. I'm like, okay. I'm like, what else? She's like, I need water. I'm like, okay. I'm like, do you have water? And she's like, I think so. I'm like, well, maybe you should check. I'm
Yeah.
like, she'll check, and then like it's good. I'm like, and like I'm walking her through it. I'm like, I'm not making her do it, but like it's a routine that we do every morning, and like easing her into it because
Yeah.
like she's out of it. She's 6. I'm like, she's a kid. I'm like, I'm not gonna put all these stress on her in the morning before she goes to school, where she has to do even more stuff and have kids distracting her. Like,
Yeah.
I want her to be a kid, but I want her to be responsible.
Yeah.
And like ADHD, like I have it. I've grown up with it, so I know tricks where her mom doesn't. And like her mom just gets frustrated, doesn't understand. I'm like, you just need to research and understand, and maybe listen to the parent who's dealt with it their whole life.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's very difficult, and like people always say, like, like, oh, co-parenting will be easy if we ever separate. Like, no, dude, I'm telling you, it ain't. I'm like, you guys can be the best when you're together. I'm like, but when you separate, I'm telling you.
Yep.
I'm like, there's very few parents that I know of that like they can do it and not have issues.
I mean, honestly,
I'm
even
like,
the best co-parenting I have ever seen is still like wild, because it's ultimately, when it comes to a kid, different chemicals launch in the brain. I now understand that. So when it comes to doing what's right for your child, yeah, man, the moment there's any type of like back and forth, everything gets ramped way up.
Oh,
so I can only imagine that happens when it's like not co-parenting. When it's co-parenting, it's going to be 40 times more, because now not only do you have the kid chemicals, you have a little bit of snark from the failed relationship, right? So even if it was ended equitably, which most aren't, if they are ended equitably, there's still a failed marriage that is part of your relationship. And anybody who pretends that it does not weigh down on people's decisions is a liar.
100% wrong.
Dude,
yeah,
it is
100%, because that's why mine doesn't work. 100%, because the way we split. I mean, mental health does, I think, have some say to do with it. But like 100%, it is a simple fact of we didn't work out, so I now hate you, and I'm gonna treat you as such and use your child as a weapon. And like, I mean, like, it's difficult, and like you can do the best you can to try to co-parent. Like, we had a solid 5 months, like we kind of got along, but like the fact is we still butt heads sometimes because she has medical say, so like I can voice my opinion, but it don't matter. End of the day, like she's gonna do what she wants to do. And like for an example, Emma at one point had lead poisoning.
Yep.
And come October, obviously some stuff happened. And her mom forgot. But then like after everything calmed down, I was like, hey, did you ever get that lead test done? She's like, oh, I'll reach out to her doctor and stuff like that. And like a week went by, and I'm like, hey, have you? And she's like, no, like the doctor didn't even know. They didn't even message her. She said if she's not showing any symptoms or anything like that, I wouldn't worry about it. I'm like, no, like it's still serious. She needs to be seen. Yeah. And she's like, well, I'm not doing it. Well, what can I do? I don't. Exactly. I'm like, I think she needs to be done. I'm like, but again, my opinion don't matter, because at the end of the day, she doesn't need to listen to me. So,
because like, the court. And again, like you have to navigate all of that while being a mature adult in front of your kid. You have to navigate court orders. You have to navigate the demands of another person. You also, being a good person, have to navigate the considerations of others, because even if they don't deserve it, you're still a good guy who tries to make it easy. And you are doing all of that while trying to raise a good kid.
Yep.
Dude, that is a mountain, man. And it's one of those things where it's so much less. It's easy to talk about the negative, but when I see these stories and I hear about them and I know people who are in it, the only thing that I can ever see is how well they keep it together for their kid. And I have a friend that we both know. I'm not going to drop names, but he had a similar ex situation that was really difficult. And ultimately, I was there for the journey until he finally got out of that wild situation. But ultimately, the journey, as crazy as the storm ever got, whenever it came to the kids, he always chose the path that was best. Always. Yeah. And that is you
difficult.
too, man. And I just sit back going, I would just like, I don't know how. Because if somebody was fucking with my life that much and fucking with my kid that much, I just can't imagine not being in jail. And the fact that y'all don't, it's amazing. You never talk shit like, and here's the thing. You don't come to me and say, Mark, this pretentious whore. Like, you're never, every now and then you might be like, man, she pissed me off. But you're not, you don't just go and slam her to hell, right? It's always, God, I just wish this would stop so me and Emma can, you know, and I just mass respect for that, man.
It's for like the parents out there that are listening, you're like, well, I'm going through a similar situation. Like, it's not that, it's like, it sounds for the people who are still like together and they have kids and stuff, and you're like, well, you know, if we were split, we'd never go through that, or like, it may come to that. But like, the kid honestly impacts you more. And like, I think a big part that helped is that I went through a situation about like my mom and my stepdad. Or not my stepdad, my mom and my dad, like they separated. Like they were kind of civil, but like I didn't like my stepmom. Like she put a lot of issues. My mom used to badmouth her, so like I didn't like my stepmom even more. It's like I had to grow up with that. And then like when my mom left my first stepdad, that was a whole crapshoot. You know, because he was basically like my dad for like most of my life. You know, like I had my dad, but like it just wasn't the same because like my stepmom. And then like my stepdad was like really my dad, but like that ended real bad, and like the fighting and like everything I had to go through growing up with that. And then like going to parenting classes and like seeing stories of like the people who like are grown now, like, oh, like I remember my mom never badmouthed my dad, you know, but my dad used to always shit on my mom, and like, you know, I lost respect to him as I got older and realized like my mom went through so much, or like, you know, my dad, you know, always put us first, and even though he was hurting and working 3 jobs to try to pay the child support and make sure we had a home and everything else, like he did his best. And like my mom used to always say how he was a deadbeat and didn't care about my mom and everything else. And like we saw the truth. Like we don't speak to my mom anymore. Like it really resonated with me because it's like, listen, I'm like I've told children's services when I've had to deal with them because of her. Like I thought, tell them like, look, I hate her 100%. I wish I didn't have to speak to her. There are days I wish she got hit by a bus, but I will never say that in front of my child because at the end of the day, your kid never asked to be here. Like your kid never asked to be in a situation where their parents aren't together. They're gonna ask questions, and as much as you may want to be like, well, you know, sweetheart, your mom was a slut and cheated on me multiple times, and you know, didn't want anything to do with me, drained my bank account, you know, didn't care about you. It's like, no, you got to be civil and be like, you know, like sometimes people just don't work out. Me and your mom still love each other very much, even though that may not be true. You know, we both love you, and you know, you just gotta do what's best. Like I tell Emma every time she has to go back, even when she doesn't want to, like, hey, you have to spend time with mom. Mom loves you, you know, her husband loves you, you know, your little brother loves you. And like you have to spend time. And like she'll, and you know, she doesn't understand, she'll ask questions. I'm like, I just gotta be like, look, like she got to the point where she started understanding, like, well, we were going to court. And one thing that I don't agree on is that you shouldn't get your kid involved with anything, with any of that. Like, she shouldn't know any of that stuff. And like,
you say you shouldn't?
Her,
I missed. Did you say you shouldn't?
No.
Okay.
I don't think that she should know
not.
because, like, I don't think that she should know that you are going to court. Like, it should stay between the parents. And like, when she asked me, because we got in a real heated argument on the phone the one day. Like, there was no avoiding it. Yeah.
Okay.
And like, it was over something really stupid that Emma had done, and I just ended up losing my shit because I just was to the point like I couldn't take it anymore. Because I'm like, there's certain things like, yes, I agree, you should call the other parent when there's disciplinary things that like they need help with, but when you're doing it frequently and you're constantly asking for help and saying like, what should I do? I can only do so much on my end. You need to figure out on your end what you need to do, and I kind of just lost it, and like I started flipping. And when she came back, she's like, so are you and mommy going back to court? Because mommy said that you are.
Oh my God.
And I was just like, sweetheart, I'm like, no. So like now sometimes she asks when like she has to go. She'll be like, well, is it because the court people say that I have to?
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, sweetheart. I'm like, I explained to her as the best I could is like, there are people who are more important than mommy and daddy who can tell mommy and daddy what to do when it comes to you. And they say that you have to be more with mommy than with daddy. And there's nothing that daddy can do about it. As much as I know you may want to be here, you have to go to mom's. I'm like, mom still loves you. I love you. I'm like, I'm still going to see you. and then she'll be like, well, how many sleeps? Because he doesn't
Oh,
comprehend
okay.
days. So
Yeah.
we started using the whole sleep thing. So I'm like, hey, in 10 sleeps, you'll be back with dad.
That's adorable. It's sad and adorable at the same time.
It is. And it's very, like, I try, no matter how difficult it may be when you separate, like, you'll be surprised how much, like, your kid will be on the forefront of your mind when you're like, I just want to punch her in the face or flip out. And you're like, my kid's right here.
Yeah.
Like, there's been a lot of days that pick up and drop off where she'll be going off of me, or when her husband was present, like, he'd make comments.
Yeah.
Like, the biggest one that I could remember, and that was the last time because Emma was still little. And I look back a couple days later, I'm like, I shouldn't have done that. Her husband and I had gotten to it over text message, and
that's rough.
It was raining, and I got the umbrella out. I'm like, I'm gonna go over there so she can get Emma out of the car. She can't hold an umbrella and get her out of the car. It's pouring, and I remember walking near the car, and they had the windows down, and this motherfucker was like, "Hey, tell him he's not allowed near my car, or I'll call the police."
Oh, for the love. Just instigating, just making it so much worse.
And she's like, hey, he doesn't want you near the vehicle. It's his vehicle. You're not allowed over here. I'm like, first off, I'm getting our child. I'm like, end of the day, you have to deal with the other parent.
Yeah.
Yes, it may be a step parent, but like, end of the day, and maybe it's different for everybody, but my opinion, end of the day, this isn't your child. I'm like, you may help take care of them, but end of the day, it's not your child. I don't really give a fuck what you have to say. And I remember just being like, dude, I'm here to get my kid. I don't have to fucking deal with you. I don't give a shit what the fuck you have to say. Go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
I'm like, got a problem? I'm right fucking here. And I just walked out with the umbrella. I put it over my ex, and she got our daughter out of the car. I put her in my arms, and I walked back to the car, put her in, and I left.
Good for you.
I'm just like, I can't. I'm like, it was really bad. Like, I look back, I'm like, I shouldn't have done that. Like, I should have been the bigger person and just not even said a fucking word. I'm like,
I'd say you held yourself back pretty good.
I'm like, it's just got to the point where I'm like, even now, like with the situation recently, with like the whole money thing, like she tried telling me that like his income doesn't matter when it comes to our daughter because he is not her parent. And I'm like, in my opinion, I feel like it's a household. I'm like, and when you marry someone, you don't only marry the parent, but you also take responsibility for their children. To a point. Now, if you guys are hurting for money and you need assistance from the other parent, then yes, I think the other parent should step up to try to help out if you can prove that like you're literally hurting for money and stuff like that. But I'm like, sitting there saying, well, his income doesn't matter. Like, I personally am struggling to take care of our child. Okay, well, like, you have another spouse that is helping. Like, his income does matter whether the state recognizes it or not. That is one thing that like drives me up a wall, is that like when you go to court and they're like, well, their income doesn't matter because it's not their child. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, so then you know what? I'm like, well, if the other parent passes away, I'm like, then they shouldn't have a say in anything when it comes to that child afterwards.
Exactly.
I'm like, or be able to live with that fucking person, whether the mom or husband wanted it at all, because it's not their parent.
Well, wouldn't they have to? I don't know how that works at all. Would they have to adopt him, or would? Okay.
So basically, depending on the situation, so like basically, if she left in her will because she's like, I want our child to live with him. Now, from my understanding, from when I talked to my lawyer about it, is that she may have that in her will, and that may be her wishes, but we would have to go to court. And they would have to look it over and be like, okay, well, why can she not go to, the biological father or mother? Because, like, why is she putting this in her will? And should he retain, what is currently in the custody order? Like, he gets, and everything like that.
Whoa.
So, like, we'd have to go down that lane.
A stepdad and a dad having to co-parent?
Yeah, it wouldn't go well with me and him.
No, it wouldn't ever work.
Like, I can't say that it would never work depending on the circumstances. Because, like, I mean, like, if we were in the situation where we were in the beginning before things went to shit, I think we could have made it work. Like, we talked, we were civil. It wasn't a big deal. But then, like, things went downhill as things tend to do.
Yeah.
But, like, I tried to iterate to everybody I talked to, like, always put your kid first. Like, they didn't ask for any of this. Like, no matter how angry you get, like, don't argue in front of your kid. Like, it teaches your kid that it's okay to fight and it doesn't matter with your kid present. And one thing that a friend of mine's going through is, and it's a big thing when I talk about people wanting to have kids, you really need to think about it. Because, like, as much as you say, I want to have a kid, okay, well, you need to sit down and talk to them. Okay, well, we want to have a kid. Okay, well, what if we don't work out? What does this look like? Do you think that we can co-parent well enough that we're not going to have issues?
Yeah.
Okay, maybe draw something up ahead of time and say, like, look, this is what we would like, and just go to a notary, get it signed. It's not going to be super held up in court. Like, it'll still be something, but hey, at least you both agreed it beforehand, and it'll kind of help to base things off of. And, like, just really think about it, because my friend, 2 kids, husband said he wanted them real bad. Had him. Husband hasn't helped at all with them really much.
No.
And I try explaining to her, like, now she's miserable. They fight a lot and stuff like that. And I'm like, you need to leave. And she's like, well, we're married. Like, marriage isn't easy. I'm like, and I understand that. I'm like, but 3 years now, I've known you that we started talking again. You're always miserable. You're always fighting, saying he's not helping. You're tired. You're not doing well. You start having anxiety and panic attacks because you're not sleeping and stressed out.
Oof.
I'm like, you don't go anywhere. You don't do anything. You're always at home. And you say you basically feel like a slave. And I'm like,
Parenting.
you are teaching your children. I said, in the long run, I said, you're teaching your son that basically it's okay for your husband to do nothing to take care of the children. It is up to the spouse to do everything. Now, whether that be a fellow man or woman, because I don't judge, that, like, his spouse now has to do everything.
Yeah.
So his spouse needs to take care of the kids, needs to do the housework, needs to do the cleaning, the cooking, the errands. He can sit back, do nothing, do whatever he wants. When he doesn't get his way, I'm going to start an argument, make you feel bad. Doesn't matter if the kids are present or not.
Oof.
Then you're also teaching your daughter, as she gets older, that's her place in the world, or just basically, hey, my other half can tell me what to do. I need to listen, and don't argue or fight about it.
Oof. So she comes to you for during her times of stress.
Like,
yeah. Oof.
You need to kind of do something about it. I'm like, I don't, when it comes to that, like, I get it's difficult and relationships are hard work, but I'm like, end of the day, I'm like, your kids come first, even in relationships.
Yeah.
And I've seen people who are like, well, when your other half comes home from work, if you're a stay-at-home mom or whatever, or stay-at-home dad, like, you should have food ready and they should be the first one served. If you don't even have food ready, like, because maybe they won't be hungry as soon as they get home. But when you make dinner, they should be the first one served because they're providing for the house. And I'm just like, no. I'm like, kids come first always. I'm like, yes, there are times when your spouse should come first with certain things, like make time for them.
Always.
Don't neglect them. I'm like, they don't always come first. I'm like, your kids are more important and they need you. I'm like, could you imagine? I'm like, your kids being hungry and, you feed someone else first and make them wait while they're starving. I'm like, I can't. I'm like, no, I can't. I'm like, it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
And you may think you want something, but then it happens and you're just like, I didn't want this.
Well, and that's a big part of it, is how much was discussed ahead of time. Because, like, me and wife have a very traditional roles in terms of how our house is ran. But all of that was discussed prior. Like, I made my points, she made her points. We have worked and figured out how to find that middle ground. And ultimately, if there is an abrasion point of how we feel the house should be ran, we talk about it. The problem that so many people run into is they just keep their head down and push forward, no matter what. Eyes closed, like, whatever. I'm just going to keep going. Go. And in reality, it's like you are going downhill into darkness and you don't even realize it. Because, like, I'm not big on leave the relationship immediately. I'm all about getting out of a bad relationship. And the way a bad relationship is determined is you try to make it good and it doesn't. And then eventually you just have to say, hey, it didn't work out. We've done everything we could and it didn't work out. So for the best of all of us, we have to leave. And that happens. It's sad, but it happens. The worst way that happens is when people could have gotten better, and because no actions were taken, they fall apart. That's what sucks the most. It's like in 3 years, just to use your friend's example, in 3 years, this problem has not been resolved. The only way that happens is if it's never talked about. So people just are angry and never say, hey, help me. Or one person is trying, the other person isn't, and it goes on for 3 years. That's the two options, right? And well, the third option is, there's story A, story B, and then the truth. So you're getting story A. I don't know how much you know from story B, but the point is like effort makes all that go away. Again, we're just using that as an example. But the point is, if you in a bad relationship, I bet you've never brought it up. And I'm talking to the people, right? You've never said, hey, this actually bugs me so much and we have to talk about it. And I guarantee you, your spouse would be like, oh, okay, let's talk about it. Because they would have no clue. Because so many people suffer in silence because they don't speak. They don't use their words. They don't say what's bugging them. And then you end up suffering for 3 years. That doesn't make her wrong. That doesn't make him any more right. What it ultimately means is you have two adults who need to talk to each other and decide, like you said, is this going to work? Because if it's not going to work, we need to make some moves. We got to figure it out. If it's going to work, let's figure it out. If it's not going to work, let's figure it out. But the key, figure it out.
Because like my thing is like, I'm all for trying to make things work. And ever since my ex, I've been a big person of just like honest, blunt truth. As even though people wrong to some ways, I'm like, but communication, because like we would fight. And like one of us would just get pissed off and just walk away because we didn't want to deal with it. And I just got tired of fighting after a while. But like, if you talk to your other half and say, hey, I'm really tired of you coming home and not helping with the kids, or like you're coming home and you're throwing your dirty laundry everywhere and not picking it up, and I'm tired of picking up after you. And they're just like, okay, what do you want me to do about it? And you're like, well, can you just like maybe not, or like help watch the kids? And they're like, sure. And like they make a half-assed attempt, or like not even an attempt, or like they just don't care. Like, that goes to show how much they respect you and care. And now maybe it was a bad day, and you talk to them again down the road. But I'm like, I've got to the point where it's the 3 strikes rule. 3 tries and then you're out, because I can't anymore. Now, depending on the situation, where like a newer friend that I recently met, she had a issue with her other half cheating. 5 times she let it go before she finally was like, nah. And I'm
cheat
like,
on me once. Golly.
It's like one time I'm like, okay. I'm like, you know what? Benefit of the doubt kind of situation where like, look, you talk it out, figure out why it happened, try to work it out if you can. Now, my thing is, second time it happens, leave. Because obviously he's not changing.
Come on. After 2.
It was the first time and it's with one person. That's when you can try to make it work. Now, if it's, hey, found out you're cheating on me, and it's like 3 different dudes or girls or whatever, then it's like, okay, that's not just a like, okay, like, you know what, something's going on in the relationship that he decided to cheat with one person, and like whatever it may be, like emotional or like sexual, whatever, they were seeking elsewhere. Instead of communicating, you could probably try to make it work. But if it's multiple people, that's not if something's wrong with the relationship, that's like, I just want to cheat to cheat.
Yep. I want my cake. Pattern. And I want to eat it too.
So there's no fixing it.
Nope. I agree.
And like I've told you before in my past, not that I'm proud of it, but like I cheated on her when I was with her in the beginning. Like she moved in with me after like being together for like 4 months, and like she just started like putting me down, and we were fighting about my mental health and stuff. And I met someone who was giving me the attention that I wanted, in the sense of like, they didn't put me down about my anxiety and my panic attacks, and they talked to me like a human being, and they helped me understand it and like go through when I had them, and like they were just there for me. And if I would have just talked to her instead of seeking it elsewhere, because like I just didn't want the confrontation, and I knew like if we couldn't work out, like she'd be homeless because she would have had nowhere to go then, like
damn,
it would have been fine. But instead I went somewhere else. She found out, we worked it out, we were good for a while, and then after we had the kid, like things fell apart, and then she started the whole cheating thing, and like, like it became a pattern. Like I was like, obviously this isn't gonna work, but like, it's a big thing that, especially when it comes to kids, like you have to make sure this is what you want. Like you have to be able to work things out. If you're having problems beforehand, because I have met someone who they're like, you know, let's just have a kid. That will solve our problem.
Oh,
No, kids are not an answer to your problems. It's not going to make things better. It might focus your attention elsewhere onto your child, but you're still going to have problems, and that's not a solution.
No.
And that's not fair to the child that
well,
was
if
not
anything, they'll be turned up, right? If anything, they're going to make your
maybe.
problem. You think? I would think that it would, if you're already stressed, and now you're stressed about having a baby, you're just, any little thing will just make you.
I think when you have the kid, it's going to shift your attention more to the kid than the problem you have with the other person.
Okay. All right.
Because you kind of got like to a point, then like when you get to the point where either maybe they're now not helping the kid, yeah, it's going to add more stress at that point. So then, yes, we're going to fight more. But it's kind of hit or miss. Like either it's going to draw your attention to your child where you have to focus more on so you don't have time to argue because you're trying to work and take care of your child and do everything else. So you may or may not fight because you just don't have the energy. And you're like, you know what? I don't want to deal with your bullshit today, Marcus. Like, fuck it. I'm like, I had to work. I had to do fucking laundry.
Yeah.
I'm like, I need to get a shower. I got a business meeting tomorrow. I got to take care of our kid. You know, you took care of kids and some other stuff. I don't have the energy to tell you how much I'm pissed off that you left your fucking dirty underwear on the couch again. So I'm just going to do it. And I don't even care.
And then be pissed about it.
Yeah. And then he just goes through the next, like, you know, 16, 18 years of just being miserable because you don't talk about it.
And that's the point.
You know?
That's what we don't do. And that's what, as much as we know it sucks to confront sometimes, I'm telling you, y'all, it will. Me and Lindsay fight. And we are as close as any couple could ever be. But if we didn't fight, we wouldn't be. That's the truth. Resentment would be born. Lessons would be learned in the wrong way. Life, and we'd start doing things to avoid fights instead of doing things to love each other. So you start to dictate how you interact with each other to avoid fighting instead of being together. The only thing you do, and I don't blame you for it. I've done it in past relationships. I had armies of women before Lindsay, and that's not me bragging. That was armies of broken hearts, y'all. All right. I had so many girlfriends because I was lonely and I wanted to find love. And they all hurt me deeply. But I learned from all of those deep hurts that you do fight. You make the effort. You don't let resentment be born. And that's no different, I imagine, for a kid. Like, you don't just swallow the things that piss you off about the things you love the most. And that's your kids and your wife and your loved ones and your family. Right? Yeah. And just because you fight doesn't mean that it's over. It just means if all you're doing is fighting, you got to focus on that for a second. And like we said earlier, you need to figure out, do we have a future or do we have our own futures? Right? Yeah. And too many people are scared to have that talk. So they jump right over that talk and go straight to
avoidance, fighting. Yeah.
You know, they avoid until it's the only option is court. And that's a shame. And it may sound like I'm talking about you, but I'm not.
It's what it goes down to, because like our fighting went from like minor things and we tried to work it out. So like she just didn't eventually to the point, like she just wasn't really listening. And like, I'm trying to get my point across like, hey, like I need some help with certain things. I'm working a full-time job. I'm like coming home, taking care of the kiddo. I'm like, you're sleeping all day. Like I kind of need you to help at least do the dishes or something. And then, like, it was the one ear, not the other. And, like, constantly having this conversation to the point, like, instead of fighting about it, I started doing it. And then I would just be tired and I'd be getting angry. And then, like, it got to the point where anytime we had an issue, it just instantly became me just fucking yelling because I didn't want to deal with it. Yep. And I'm like, you know what? If I just yell, I'm like, she's going to get pissed off and walk away and not even talk to me. So I'm like, cool. So instantly it was like, hey, this bill wasn't paid. I thought you said you paid it. And I'd just be like, no. I'm like, do I gotta fucking do everything in this fucking household?
And then boom.
And then she'd be like, and she'd just be like, why? What the fuck is your problem? Like, stop being an asshole. And I'm like, no. Like, I'm fucking tired of this shit. And then she'd start yelling at me. I'd yell at her. And then after like 2 minutes, she'd be like, fuck you. And go upstairs, slam the door shut in the bedroom, put the TV on. And I'd be like, cool, I'm angry, but I don't have to deal with her shit. I'd be downstairs and I'd be good. And
yep. I feel you though, brother. Not good. Did your light just turn off?
Who? What? No. What?
You look dim.
I have sun. The sun was coming through and it went back out. So,
okay. Dude, this is so good, man. I mean, we just hit the hour mark. And I feel really good about where we landed.
Yeah.
I mean, this turned into a co-parenting stream. Like, we talked so much about the good, the bad, in the middle of co-parenting. I mean, it's on the surface, it's really easy just to sit back and complain about your exes or complain about the situation. And I just love that we take these conversations and we always manage to make it about doing what's best for the kid. Isn't that just something that if more people did, we'd probably just have a little bit better world? I think so.
That ding off. I don't know if you can hear that, but I may turn it off.
Oh, I don't know. I don't hear anything.
Okay, my phone just blowing up. Friend is messaging to me, the one that I've been talking to. So I'm just like, like the butterflies in your stomach.
Yeah. So dude. I want to leave it on this question. As a co-parenting parent, what is the best advice you could give someone in your situation who's thinking that they can't make it?
You just have to think about your kid. Like, honestly, 99.9% of the time when I'm like, I just want to jump in front of a bus or I just wish I could hit her with my car, like, just be like, my kid needs me to show her that no matter what, you have to be strong and put your child first, because it's difficult. There are days when I'm just like, I want to shut my phone off. I want to tell you to eat a bullet. I just want to go off. But I'm like, my child needs to learn that if things don't work out and you have a kid, they come first, no matter how angry you may be, because they're gonna remember it. They're gonna see it as they get older, and you don't want your kid thinking, oh, well, mommy and daddy broke up because of me. It's my fault. Like,
never.
You need to reassure them that they're loved, that if they do see you ever fight because you lose it, you need to make sure you tell them it's not their fault. Because I'm telling you right now, from the videos I've watched, from the stories I've heard, kids will always blame themselves. I did. I thought it was my fault when my mom and my stepdad split up, 100%.
That's a shame.
But, like, you have to just put your kid first and always think about your kid. In the darkest times when you're like, I can't do this, just let the other half take her full custody. I'll see them every other weekend and just be done with it. Like, don't punish your kid. Focus on your kid. Know it will get better. Eventually, there's going to come the day, hopefully sooner than later, that you can be like, I don't have to talk to the other parent anymore because my kid's old enough. And I'll tell you what, that also will get you through, because I'm telling you what, the day Emma turns 16, I'm so excited. Like, I don't have to talk to her anymore. Like, she's old enough. And I'm so looking forward to it. You have no idea. And I'm telling you guys and girls, I'm like, you can do it. Amen. You will get through it.
Don't give up. Don't give up. And I just love that so much, man. Storyteller, this is one of my favorite days of the week. The TDPP coming at you guys hot, the dad's perspective. Today was co-parenting, and we can't wait to see y'all on the next episode. So make sure you hit that like button if you liked what we had to say. Subscribe if you want to hear more of it. But most importantly, y'all, go spread that love. Ain't that right, Story?
I guess. All love.
All right, y'all. We'll talk to y'all on the next one. Have a wonderful day. Later.